Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Veteran politician N18G wins a parliamentary vote to become Thailand's next Prime Minister after Paetongtarn Shinawatra was dismissed last week by the Constitutional Court for ethical violations. The Kremlin says Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump could meet again soon, while Putin rejects Western security guarantees for Ukraine discussed at the Paris summit. Hamas releases a video of 2 Israeli hostages in Gaza, with one seen urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to launch a planned offensive to seize Gaza City. Poland condemns the arrest by Belarus authorities of a Polish citizen accused of spying, the latest flare-up in the neighbours' tense relations. And the UN investigators find that Rwanda-backed M23 militia and the Congolese military and its affiliates have all committed gross rights violations in eastern DRC, warning of possible war crimes and crimes against humanity. Hello and welcome. Let's start with the tensions building up between 2 neighbours, Mali and Algeria. The junta-led Mali has filed a case against Algeria at the International Court of Justice, accusing it of deliberately shooting a Malian military drone. According to Mali, the incident took place during the night of March the 31st to April the 1st near the Tinzoatan in the Kidal region. Now, Mali accused Algeria of blocking its crackdown on armed groups by shooting the drone, which was operating in Mali's airspace. Meanwhile, Algeria has denied the allegations, saying that the military drone had violated Algerian airspace. The drone shooting sparked a diplomatic crisis. The 2 neighbours banned flights to and from each other's airspace and recalled ambassadors in April. And not just Mali, but its allies Burkina Faso and Niger also recalled their ambassadors from Algeria. Now, Mali's allies condemned the drone shooting as, quote-unquote, an irresponsible act by the Algerian regime. Algeria also responded by recalling its ambassadors from Niger and postponed the posting of its new ambassador in Burkina Faso. Just like Burkina Faso and Niger, Mali too is grappling with terrorist violence. Armed groups, some of which are linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, continue to attack civilians in Mali. Mali has accused Algeria of backing these terrorist groups, particularly along their shared border region. But relations between the 2 neighbours were not always hostile. In fact, Algeria once served as a key mediator between Mali's government and the Tuareg rebels. But the back-to-back military coups in Mali in 2020 and 2021 changed the equation between the 2 neighbours. As the junta came to power, it cut off ties with the former coloniser France, along with Burkina Faso and Niger. And the shared anti-West sentiment pushed them closer to Russia. Algeria, meanwhile, has slammed Mali's use of Russian mercenaries, which has often been marred by controversy. Now, reportedly, the Russian private mercenary operations have sowed resentment within the Malian army and have caused security lapses. Last year in January, Mali's junta scrapped a 2015 peace deal with separatist groups brokered by Algeria. The deal was long considered essential for stabilizing the country. Now, Mali's case against Algeria at the World Court has further heightened tensions between the two neighbors. Now, it remains to be seen how this diplomatic spat will affect the security situation in the Sahel. And for more on this, we have with us Beverly Achieng, a senior analyst at Control Risks, joining us live from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for being with us again, Beverly.
Thank you once again, Alison.
Now, Mali argues its drone was still in its own airspace, while Algeria claims that it had violated Algerian skies. From an international law perspective, what criteria will the ICJ likely consider in determining which country's account carries more weight?
I mean, it's important to look at the likely scenarios that would emerge. So the ICJ, having received this petition, will probably announce a date for proceedings. Both parties would then be presenting their cases and arguments. Now, there's a scenario whereby Algeria, given the fact that it has completely denied these allegations, decides not to appear before the plenary, but the proceedings would still continue. In another scenario, we might see another member state, the ICJ, requesting to intervene in the dispute. And we have seen some reports unconfirmed that potentially Russia may want to mediate between the two countries because it is an ally to these two countries, Algeria and Mali. Either way, these proceedings are likely to be quite lengthy. They will take into consideration the border demarcations, zones of military operations, the allegations of infractions, among other issues, until a ruling is delivered. But for now, obviously, it's very unclear what actually transpired at the border that has led to these tensions between Mali and Algeria.
Right. And how does this drone incident reflect the deeper breakdown of relations between Mali and Algeria, especially given the collapse of the 2015 Algiers peace accord and, of course, Mali's accusations of Algeria's ties to armed groups?
Well, the immediate reactions from both Mali and Algeria when the incident was first reported do reflect that there is underlying mistrust between the two countries, especially after the collapse of the Algiers peace deal. Mali's military government has continued to perceive Algeria as an alleged backer of the armed and militant groups. And in fact, one of the accusations that emerged after the drone incident was that Algeria allegedly blocked Mali from carrying out a strike against the head of the Al-Qaeda affiliate in the Sahel. Algeria wants to push on with dialogue. It has made overtures with Mali, which it has rejected, but we're not seeing the possibility of a resumption of peace talks, either headed by Algeria or others. But there will be continued hostilities, both military confrontations at the border, as well as against militant and armed groups, which Mali will continue to link with the Algerian authorities.
And with terrorist violence and criminal networks still destabilizing Mali and the wider Sahel region, what impact could this diplomatic and legal confrontation have on regional cooperation in counterterrorism and, of course, border security?
Well, yes, the legal dispute, the diplomatic fallout is a handicap to joint cooperation, not just between Mali and Algeria, but even Algeria and the wider Sahel. Algeria had been tipped to play a key role in both aligning counterinsurgency and the diplomatic strategy for the Sahelian countries, especially after the military coups in Mali and Niger, particularly because of those close relations between the southern communities in Algeria and the northern and western regions of Mali and Niger, respectively. Beyond this, we look at economic cooperation. There was supposed to be plans to expand the Trans-Saharan Highway connecting from Algiers to Lagos. This is likely to remain on hold, and diplomatic and reduced joint counterinsurgency will likely allow armed groups to capitalize and continue to use this security vacuum to ramp up operations within those border regions.
Right. Beverly, as always, great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And shifting focus to a major confrontation in Africa, it is over the continent's largest dam, set to be inaugurated next Tuesday. But ahead of the inauguration, the dispute over the impact of the dam has intensified. On the 9th of September, Ethiopia will officially inaugurate the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or the GERD, built on the Nile River. However, downstream nations, Egypt and Sudan, have called it a serious threat to their water security. Now, the remarks came after bilateral talks between the Egyptian and Sudanese foreign ministries in Cairo on Wednesday. Both sides reiterated that the Ethiopian dam violates international law, carries severe consequences for their countries, and represents a continuing threat to stability in the Eastern Nile Basin. Now, the GERD is a massive hydroelectric project on the Blue Nile. It is Africa's largest hydropower plant, standing 145 meters high and nearly 2 kilometers wide. But Egypt and Sudan have objected to it from the start. Its construction began in 2011 and was completed only in July of this year. For Ethiopia, it promises an energy revolution. It is a national project of historic scale and a rare symbol of unity in a country divided by internal conflicts. Around 45% of Ethiopia's 130 million people still lack electricity, and frequent blackouts in Addis Ababa force businesses and homes to rely on generators. Analysts say that the dam could transform the economy, boosting industry, expanding electric vehicle use, and supplying neighboring countries through regional power grids. Now, it also holds promises of foreign currency earnings through electricity exports, tourism, and fishing. But for neighboring Egypt and Sudan, it brings fears. Egypt depends on the Nile for 97% of its water. With a population of 110 million and minimal rainfall, its reliance on the river is absolute. Cairo calls the dam a looming disaster. Water in Sudan has been less vocal than Egypt, but still demands a legally binding agreement on water use and dispute resolution, and has warned it will not accept unilateral actions from Ethiopia. The rivalry has spilled into wider geopolitical tensions. Egypt has strengthened ties with Eritrea and Somalia, both hostile toward Ethiopia. And Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has repeatedly sought to reassure neighbors, insisting the dam poses no harm downstream, and even comparing it to Egypt's own Aswan High Dam. Over the past decade, mediation attempts by the US, the World Bank, Russia, the UAE, the African Union have all stalled. US President Donald Trump, a close ally of Egypt, claimed that he brokered peace between Cairo and Addis Ababa, but public statements over the dam show no sign of agreement. The rivalry has only escalated in the run-up to the inauguration, and once the dam is unveiled next week, it remains to be seen how far the dispute will go. And shifting focus to Zimbabwe, which has strengthened its strategic ties with China, Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa met with Chinese President Xi Jinping for bilateral talks on Thursday. Now, the meeting took place on the sidelines of a massive parade in Beijing, marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, an event Mnangagwa attended a day earlier. Now, during the talks, the two leaders announced the upgrading of relations to an all-weather community with a shared future. She extended a warm welcome to Mnangagwa, calling for both nations to jointly remember history and firmly safeguard world peace. He also urged that China, Zimbabwe, further build on the five-star ironclad cooperation framework based on politics, the economy, security, culture, and international coordination. It was first proposed during his meeting with Mnangagwa last year.
This year marks the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Zimbabwe. The five-star ironclad friendship between the two countries continues to deepen. I suggest elevating our bilateral relations to an all-weather community with a shared future to set a model for solidarity and cooperation between China and Africa, and even between China and the global South.
Mnangagwa said that after 45 years of diplomatic ties, relations between Zimbabwe and China have become mature and resilient. He also highlighted China's initiatives, including zero-tariff policies for African countries, and praised Beijing's growing role in global affairs.
Thank you, Excellency. I also convey my congratulations to you, the Chinese nation, for a spectacular military parade which we witnessed yesterday. It was something out of this world. Undoubtedly, the commemorations will go a long way to promote the correct historical narrative of China's great contribution to World War II. The spirit and the resilience of the Chinese people and their ironclad strength will remain a source of inspiration for generations to come.
The meeting also paved the way for a major economic agreement. China has approved the import of blueberries from Zimbabwe. It's a significant step that opens a vast and rapidly expanding market for the southern African nation's horticultural sector. Zimbabwe's blueberry production is among the fastest growing in the world. Output is projected to reach 12,000 metric tons in 2025, up from 8,000 metric tons in 2024. With global demand surging due to the fruit's health benefits and Zimbabwe's climate allowing high yields and early delivery into export markets, the country is positioning to capitalize on booming international demand. For Zimbabwe, this deal represents both a diplomatic boost and an economic lifeline, tightening its alliance with Beijing while opening new doors for its agricultural exports. And staying on with agricultural exports, South Africa's sugarcane farmers are facing a double whammy. Steep Trump tariffs and cheap imports are eating into their earnings. South Africa's sugar industry is worth over $1.4 billion, and it supports over 300,000 jobs. That is a substantial number for a country with one of the world's highest rates of unemployment, which is at nearly 33%. South Africa voted out apartheid more than 3 decades ago, but its legacy continues to live on, because it is the white minority that holds most of the agricultural land. Nearly 26,000 sugarcane farmers, most of whom are black, work alongside 1,100 large-scale growers. Now, these farmers are bearing the brunt of the 30% tariffs on South African goods imposed by the Trump administration.
This tariff thing now that has been imposed by Trump, it's going to have a negative effect in our operations, because now the price that we are selling the cane to the outside countries, it's going to be more. We have to have 30% more of the price, of which the customers will have to compare now which one is cheaper. Eventually they'll go for a cheaper price, and then it will affect us. They won't buy our sugar.
Pretoria has long benefited from Washington's flagship trade initiative for Africa. That is the African Growth and Opportunities Act, or AGOA. The act grants eligible African countries duty-free access to the US market for thousands of products. But even this act is set to expire on the 30th of September, and its renewal is going to be nothing short of an uphill task. The US has been a premium market for South Africa's sugar exports, but Trump's America First policy has pushed the interests of the African nations to the last on his list of priorities.
The US market, compared to other export markets, the value we generate is, is far superior. And being an industry that effectively that effectively 1 million livelihoods are dependent on. A loss of revenue in that market will definitely hurt our industry. That's something that's deeply, deeply concerning for us.
Industry experts have urged South African authorities to improve trade ties with the Trump administration, because not having good ties with the US is not something that the country can afford.
We would really urge government to conduct themselves seriously with the Trump administration right now and try and come up with a deal, because if we don't have good trade relationships with the US, it's going to be detrimental not just to our sector but to many others as well, because at the bottom line, United States is one of the largest markets in the world, and I think for almost any commodity that you're trading in.
Trump tariffs have already wreaked havoc into the lives of South Africa's sugarcane farmers, and the inflow of cheap imports from countries like Eswatini has made things even worse for them. Large harvests in major producers like India and Brazil have resulted in low global prices, further adding to the pain of these farmers. So, on one hand, South Africa's sugarcane farmers are struggling with cheap imports, and on the other, they are reeling under the impact of Trump tariffs. As a trade deal between the US and South Africa remains elusive, the double whammy is likely to turn the lives of these sugarcane farmers even more sour. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time on Monday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, and goodbye.
It's over! He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.